have to over
Hello all.
Good morning or good afternoon. How you going?
Very good, Bradley. I was thinking of your photos. Another book for you could be like 365 days of, where to go in Victoria around the world. Your photos just capture a bit more than the average tourist would. Amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great. It was it's beautiful. We're very fortunate in our state to have all the things we have.
Yeah, very good. So thank you for sharing. Good to see.
I know it's been a while since we've seen real travel photos, isn't it? I have to set up a time with you and Michelle. I think we probably don't have any in the diary.
Not for a while, that'd be great.
All right, everyone, a small group, but we might get ourselves started. Um, Morgan, you're walking in your backyard with your bees, or where are you? I don't think you can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Melissa, shake your head. Cool. Just wondered on the quality stuff that we started last time. How did you guys take to that? What did you think about that? Any comments?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was very interesting, especially linking it back to what we had already learned as far as the leadership stuff. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Good stuff. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think I really took out of the customer defines their quality and what they believe, whether we like it or not. It's about what they feel. Well, that was very good, very interesting concept.
Yeah, that's for sure. The whole idea of customer defines quality is a powerful one. All right, we might get into it if you're ready. We're entering a part of the TQS stuff that I really love, and it starts to gel together and make a lot of sense. Um, and that's understanding the customer value model, which then allows us to design the customer value package, which will come in a little while. And the customer value model is understanding their needs and objectives so we can define sort of the resources that are required. Um, and it's that formula that we apply basically to each client. And if you're looking at a sales world, it might have a broad Fletcher's Way approach, but then you're going to customize that to suit the individual needs of that client. For example, asking them to complete the vendor checklist about what they want and how they want to be serviced. In property management, understanding the uniqueness of each landlord, that some landlords may not want to receive everything by email. They might want to receive texts or phone calls if there's any problems or maintenance requirements. It's coming up with that understanding of what the client wants, because you can't deliver unless you know what they actually want. And if we just make the assumption that we know, we fall back into that trap of walking into a restaurant and the waiter assumes they know what we want to eat. And I think that that's a real arrogance of a lot of service providers to just make the assumption that they know what the actual customer wants, because I'm the expert. I'm the waiter. I'm the retail provider. I'm the lawyer. I'm the accountant. I'm the real estate agent. So I know what you should want. Well, it doesn't really work that way. And the customer value model and the value package, which we'll come back to, is a mental thing to really get a hold of understanding, well, what are the customer's needs? What are they trying to achieve? Remember that thing, if I did an outstanding job for you, what did I actually do? How do you want me to communicate with you? And it's stuff that I use this extensively in a commercial environment with our clients in a law firm environment, where I would sit down with them and define to create their customer value model as to what they want and how they want it. And then I would deliver a customer value package by getting all of the service providers who are going to support that client to understand this is how we're going to service that client. And we did an amazing job, because the legal industry is essentially one-way traffic. It's the way the lawyers want to do it, and they don't ever think of the client. And I turned that all on its head, and we won so much business as a result, because of the referrals we were getting and the recommendations because of this approach. And so, coming to understand who you're providing service to, whether it's an internal customer or an external, and knowing what they need and how they want it, is a very powerful way to understand things. It's outside in philosophy. Once you have your value model, you can develop You can then, Sarah, there's a typo in there. It should be then develop an organizational vision and mission to meet the demands of that model. In other words, you have to understand where our customer's coming from to know how we actually are going to do what we do. And, certainly when I designed Fletcher's Way and the various modules, I took a lot of customer stuff into account because we were getting surveying customers every time we did a sale through the purchase. We were custom servicing our landlords and our tenants. We did 2 market researches where we went out and asked them all sorts of questions, and all that stuff led to how we developed our service model at Fletcher's. You then design your customer value package, which is what you're going to deliver to that client. And if you don't ask and you don't know, how do you really deliver service that's going to hit the mark? You're just guessing. You're just hoping that the generic approach works 80-20. But on a customer service thing, 80% success isn't very good. You need to be 95 plus really to win people's hearts. And 80-20 rule on customer service is not a good rule. So the more you understand about what they're looking for, then the more you can understand what you design when you come to the value package. This allows you to then really begin to improve the company to deliver those things. And as we built Fletcher's Way, we had to work on every system in the office to be able to deliver that sort of whatever it was to clients. For example, running our opens and having doormats and plastic stands and name badges and places magazines at every door and brochures on every property. All those, each one of them was its own little system to build to be able to make sure we did that. When somebody joins Fletcher's, they get all their stuff. When they leave, we get it all back, making sure they can take it to their opens and that they do take it to their opens. And those that had a lot of opens and needed more. And it doesn't matter what it is, if it was a service thing, when we wanted them to do weekly reports, we created a really nice version of weekly reports they could send out to their clients. Everything that you want to be able to deliver, you have to be able to build. And if you expect individuals to do it, then it probably won't happen. So the customer value that they get, this total customer value, comes from the combination of your tangibles and intangibles that they experience through what we're going to call, and you're going to come to understand the term, moments of truth, that become their perception of doing business with our company. And that moment of truth is any interaction that a customer has with us is a moment of truth. And we're going to have a look at that in more detail. But I want to say that when I first came to Fletcher's, I developed what turned out to be 37 pages of A4 size Excel of our moments of truth at Fletcher's. And I mapped out every single encounter we would have with people, whether they came into one of our offices, each of the offices we had at the time 3, called us on the phone, sent us an email, visited our open, came to our auction, were doing a lease through us, we're a new a potential vendor, a potential landlord. And I mapped out every one of those different scenarios as to the moments of truth associated with those. And I began to improve the service for all of those. So looking at if somebody's coming into an office, the parking situation, when they're opening the doors, what does it look like? The gardens outside, when they're coming in, the doormats. Because when I first came to Fletcher's, my moments of truth experience with Fletcher's was I came for an interview after meeting the headhunter at his offices in the city, and I'm a CBD guy. Most of my work has been done there. It's all pretty glossy. I came to Canterbury, and the gardens were full of weeds. The doormats were dirty. The carpet was dirty. The 2 receptionists were just sitting there talking to each other, not even looking up. When I came in, they kept talking to each other. The furniture was ratty. My experience with Fletcher's was very poor from a moments of truth experience. And I mentioned this to you guys before, but I wrote Tim and Rob, after spending 2 hours in an interview with them, I wrote a 7-page paper to them as to how they could improve their business just from what I experienced by being a customer for 2 hours in their premises. And that whole idea of making sure that every moments of truth that you have is positive is behind my plan in the way we take an incoming call on a company appraisal and we answer it really well, and then we pass it to a sales sec who gets that information and understands it and takes down everything else, and then makes sure that she gets it to the salesperson in a very timely and effective manner, and that they call back within 1 hour and they ask the right questions and they check box and dice, and all those things are moments of truth. Every one of those things is an experience. Think about an appraisal. Somebody calls, speaks to our receptionist, secondly, then speaks to sales secretary, speaks to a salesperson. They receive a confirmation email. They receive a stage 1 at their door. They might get a confirmation text. Then you show up at their door and knock on their door. So before you've even really spoken to them, there's been already 7 moments of truth where we can do well or not do well. So before we ever actually are in their lounge room having a chat, we might have already shot ourselves in the foot, or we might be doing 10 out of 10 on 7 out of 7 items. And those moments of truth continue. Same thing, people coming to our auctions or our opens or leasing a property. How does that go? And so it's really, really important to understanding, trying to deliver this customer value comes from all those moments of truth. And the first book on this was from Scandinavian Airlines that Carl Albrecht went and did a study on and wrote a book called 10,000 Moments of Truth. And that they estimated that every single day, Scandinavian Airlines would encounter 10,000 moments of truth with their customers. And how do they do? If it's hard to get a booking, you haven't done so well. If you get to the airline and they don't have your booking correctly, or you're getting on the plane and the seats are dirty, or the food isn't any good, or the waitresses, the hostess, the service isn't very good, it leaves not on time, you miss your connection. All those are moments of truth, and same for us. And so it's not just the outcome, it's not just the major service delivery, it's all of those things that happen before someone makes a decision. And I'm willing to say that before somebody lists a property with us, there has probably been somewhere between 20 and 30 moments of truth where we will either be above our competitors or below our competitors. And that's what adds up to that person's perception of us, is the moments of truth. Were we easy to deal with? Were we professional? Did we do what we say we're going to do? On all of those steps, because if any of those steps are hard, remember that in as I teach in Fletcher's Way, most people choose on the negative, not the positive. I got 3 agents in. I don't say that these 2 were exceptional, we're going to go with them. I'm going to say, I didn't really like that girl on hindsight. She was a bit late. She was a bit too brass. Let's not see her. Let's go with these 2. And then they get them back in. And then they're talking about these 2 and go, you know what? That second agent, it just wasn't switched on. He wasn't really paying attention to what we were saying. Let's go with Fletcher's. Or they get down to the last 2 out of however many and say, they were both fantastic, right? Couldn't fault either of them. Who do I feel more comfortable with in the end of the day? And they make a call. It's only when you get down to that final bit that you make a decision on the positive. It's no different than anything else. You look at a menu and there's all these items on the menu, and you start to eliminate the ones you don't want, and you narrow it down to a couple that you might want. And you don't just choose one. You usually say, no, I don't really think I want the fish today. I'm going to go with the gnocchi. And you choose the gnocchi. You've eliminated on the negative. So understanding moments of truth in the sales context or service context is really, really important, and something that can't be ignored. So in your own, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Think about this for a minute in your tasks, and you have your task sheets on the Word doc. Intangibles, remember, tangibles are hard, physical things that people can relate to. If you send someone a stage 1, that's a tangible issue. You leave them a proposal point proposal, even soft copy or hard copy, that's a tangible thing that they can look at. The intangible is the experience people get from dealing with you. It's the service component of what you do. It's something that's harder to measure. Were you friendly? Were you helpful? Were you on song with what they were looking for? Were you easy to deal with? Did you remember their name? Those are all intangibles. So just think for a moment on these 4 questions about internal and external. Remember, internal customers are your colleagues. External customers are clients. What do you do in your job to deliver both tangible and intangible things, service components to your customers? Because ultimately, they all add up to this perception of total customer value. And you can think of moments of truth as you think about these, the interactions with you all the way through, which ones are tangible, which ones are intangible. Spend a few minutes on this. It's an important exercise. Okay, I just maybe ask the question, are we, pretty right to continue on, or are you guys still working on this? Yeah, pretty right to continue on. Um, you probably never thought of this stuff before, but do you find it, I don't know, helpful, easy to think of these sort of things and to start to see those splits between intangible and were there big differences between your internal and external customers, as far as the things that you saw? Any comments?
Hi, Bradley. It's Sandy.
Hey, Sandy.
I've thought about this a lot, especially coming into property management. It's actually a really big thing for us, tangibles and intangibles. Probably not the terminology that you're using, but the difference between, this is just my personal belief, between a really good property manager is the communication that happens between, your staff members and your landlords and your tenants and your externals of trades. So you can say, hey, I'm going to send a work order, and you can go, this is, I need you to fix the plumbing at this place. But instead, you send the photo that the tenant sent, that's the leaking tap or something along those lines. So it's about being able to back up those things that you say you're going to do. That's just how I see it. So if it's, for argument's sake, when Ian gave me the referral, I spoke to him about, this is where it was at. And I didn't get back to Ian, but I tried to make contact with him, and I went on annual leave, and we didn't get that property only because they'd been promised, but they were going to contact Ian, but I wanted to speak to him about it and let him know where it was too. So I think that it's about communication and making sure that people are communicating and very clear with where their procedure is at. And that's what makes a good tangible or an intangible.
Yeah, I think, well, communication is one of those really big words, and it's fundamental to what we do. Thanks, Sandy. Other comments? Okay. So this moment of truth idea is anytime someone comes in contact with your organization, they get an impression of you and your service. And those moments of truth is what ultimately leads to their perception of you. Are you easy to deal with, difficult to deal with? Are you responsive? Are you in touch? Are you in tune? When they think of your brand, what do they think of? That's based on their experiences through the moments of truth and what people have told them of their own moments of truth. Oh, I hear they're really difficult to deal with. I hear they're really great to deal with. Is defining what the brand is. Somebody looks at the brand and has a definition of it. And it's really, really important to understand these moments of truth and sort of how they affect it. So here's an example. There's lots of different tools in TQS. This is a service chart of charting out what might happen as moments of truth. So here's a very simple one of opening a bank account. In person, you park the car, you enter the bank, you ask for account, an accounts clerk, you wait, you discuss it, you fill out forms, you get temporary, you leave the bank, and you say how old this thing is. And then your statements arrive, and you've sort of had that whole thing. And if the temporary checks didn't work, or you didn't get your checks in the old days, or your statements don't come, or it's got the wrong name on it, or you couldn't find a car park in the first place, all of those things, you got in a queue, you waited a really long time to speak to someone at the bank, and then the person you spoke to didn't really know what they were doing very well. All of those things are this part of this cycle of service. And if you really want to look at your moments of truth, you do this. You sort of think, as I did, as I said, when I created 37 pages of Excel spreadsheets, I was thinking of every interaction somebody could have with us. And that's where, I came up with, we can't have phones calling in the office and not being able to divert to mobile. We can't have, people coming into dirty offices if we're supposed to be representing them and selling their property? Why would you want to sell with an agent who has a dirty office themselves, or has a garden that's not kept well, or, you know, um, and, you know, to maintain all of that is really difficult. You know, you build all these things to service people with excellence. Then as you grow, you have more and more people, and you rely on them to believe in the service chart. And that's why, you know, we have Fletcher's Way, and there's things that have to be done and not done, and and why we have service standards and push people, because everything that people encounter, it reflects on our brand. And it's this is a simple way to sort of look at it. Um, so, you know, understanding in our world where they're not going to drink a Coke at the end of the experience, they're not going to buy and leave with a new BMW, or they're not going to have a trip and have all those experiences. What they're going to have, by and large, when they're done with Fletcher's, is, yes, they'll have a premises of some kind or another, or they'll have gotten rid of their premises of some kind or another, but they're going to have a feeling of having dealt with us. And that's what service environment is all about. It's about feeling. What feeling do people have when they deal with you? Therefore, what's their impression of your brand? Easy to deal with, difficult to deal with, really professional, not so professional. And remember, each of the people determine that. And when I first came to Fletcher's, and I mentioned to you, we had 26 house people, and by the end of not long, we had 12 of those. And a lot of those were coming as we developed Fletcher's Way, and we released the way we do opens first and then auctions. And then I was getting salespeople coming into my office regularly saying, you know, but you know, so-and-so isn't having brochures at their property, or so-and-so isn't arriving and running a good open for these reasons. And because they all started to realize that if we're all going to lift, we all have to lift, because you can't have this brand. And the brand was so beaten up when I came to Fletcher's. And I spent the first, you know, probably 18 months of my time there, or 2 years, dealing with constant perceptions that we were the old Fletcher's, and, you know, constantly having people complaining about things that had happened in the past. And that's because so many people didn't respect the cycle of service. And so as we were reinventing it, the people at Fletcher's were getting on board to realize that, yeah, we need to do this, because we need to lift the brand perception. And if I'm doing it and you're not, then it's not going to work, because they're going to go to your open, and then they're going to think this is really badly run. And that's going to taint their perception when they get to my open and about me. And it's that feeling. So it's their reaction to an experience. You know, brand is an expectation wrapped up in an experience. It's an expectation wrapped up in an experience. So when I see it, that's what I'm expecting, but what did I actually experience? And that's going to be my perception of the brand in the end of the day. And so if you have a really good brand that people speak really well of, then there's a high expectation to start with. If you have a really low expectation, then you're going to miss out on a lot of business in the first place. And then if you get business and you deliver well, slowly you can raise that up. So remember, you know, that whole experience about brand and what it all means, and this is all about brand. All this stuff is how people perceive us, is that expectation wrapped up in an experience. And you want the expectation to be high. You want people out there saying, deal with Fletcher's, they're great. They're really good at what they do. Been around a long time. I had a great experience. I was only a buyer through them, but they were fantastic. I was a tenant and they were really helpful. Their systems are really good. Everything's really, you know, works well. So in this experience, think about something you've had as a customer, and just think about the actual moments of truth that exist in that. And it says in your notes, and this, which is the next part of it, is when you, in your notes, you can document just one service experience that you had, and put in there these 3 into 3 columns, each of the moments of truth. Was it a minus, a standard, or a plus? In other words, I'll give you an example, right? I used to teach customer service a lot as a consultant, and I went up to the Mount Buffalo Ski Chalet to run a workshop for them. And when I got to reception, we had driven, a long way to get there. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours from Melbourne, and it was wet and cold, and the kids were cold. And we got into the beautiful old Mount Buffalo Chalet, and even I'm the guy that's going to speak on customer service. We were kept waiting about a half hour to check in. They were busy, and we were sort of wet and cold, and blah blah blah. I would say that waiting to check in was a minus, right? If I had got checked in within a matter of 5, 7, 10 minutes, you'd say it was a standard. The plus factor is I taught this to them, and when I came back the next time, walked up into reception, they had somebody greeting people and said, oh yes, the Brown family, you guys take a seat over here and let me get you guys a drink. What would you like to have while you're waiting? And I'm going to get you the check-in sheet that we can do to speed up your check-in. What would you like to have while you're waiting? Now that's a plus factor. And I said that to them in my first experience, that this is what you should do, and they implemented it. And that's where you see it's a plus, because it's sort of beyond your expectation. Wow, that's great. So when you have these moments of truth, these tangibles, intangibles, they can either be, yeah, that's expected. That's what, you'd expect to happen. You go to a restaurant, you expect to be seated within, a couple of minutes. You expect them to come in come over with your, a drinks request or menus within the first 4 or 5 minutes. That's all standard. What if they do something that's, you wait forever for someone to sit you down, and, we just got to clean your table, then that becomes a minus. A plus factor is you sit down and you're greeted really professionally by someone who says, look, we'll let you settle for a couple minutes. We'll be right back to take your drinks order. Here's your drinks menu. And, and you start to look and go, yeah, that's really positive. That's a plus. So it'll help you in your service chart to just think about them into these different sort of categories as you record something. So think about something you did in the last week, and just spend a few minutes doing that. how are we going with that exercise? Comments? More time, or are we good? Thumbs up if we're good. Okay. Did it make you think about things you haven't thought about before?
I think every year that goes past, standard expectations get higher. So your expectations last year might be different to this year with certain things. I think their expectations are higher. So you've always got to be lifting constantly, whether it's in, a restaurant, an airline, whatever it might be. I think everything becomes normal, what you expect. So you've just got to go that extra plus and just keep pushing the pluses.
Yeah, and not just at what you've just said, because you're right, but also the speed. The expectation of everything being faster is also just as powerful. So better and faster, want quicker responses. Like it's no longer good enough to respond within an hour to an email. People are after you 10 or 15 minutes later, where's my response? And so it's both of those things. We're all, through technology, expect everything to be instantaneous. And so both higher quality and faster at the same time. I really encourage you to think about this yourself when you look at your own service chart for what you do for internal, external people, and you think about how many plus factors do I have in there? Am I actually exceeding their expectations? Am I just meeting their expectations, or am I below their expectations? Or you can exceed their expectations, then, wow, that's great, really wowed. I'm telling you, the difference between sitting in waiting a half hour to check in when you're cold and wet versus somebody sitting you down at a table, offering you a drink and, helping the process is a world of difference. And it didn't take very much to do that, So the whole idea of looking at what gives real added value versus, yep, that's just what you expect, is really important, and if you want to win more business, you want to keep more people happy, then you do that. It's funny, when I became an HR director at Arthur Young originally, well, it wasn't my title, but that's what I was. Personnel in those days and everything. Two things really surprised me. One is, as I got, and this is way before emails existed, right? These are days of written memos and things like that. When I got something in my in tray, I just acted on it. Like I didn't know any different, like somebody puts in a request for leave, I would look at it, I would call the manager, I'd call them back and say, your leave is approved. And they'd say, wow, like that's just, usually it takes a couple weeks. And it really amazed me that I could get this plus factor just by being quick. And when any of our suppliers would contact me for anything, I would be immediately back on the phone. And the second thing that really surprised me is, wow, you return calls. So many people just don't return calls. And both those things just sort of are absolutely foreign to me, to think I wouldn't do something in a just-in-time basis and I wouldn't return people's calls. And it was funny because that's not what these people had experienced before. And so, for me, what was standard might have been a plus to these people that were receiving it. And it's all of a sudden, like, I realized, wow, that's a competitive advantage for me, because if I'm really quick in doing all this, then I'm going to wow people a lot more. So my whole basis of developing our recruitment approach in those firms, and then at Freehills for following, and then at PCR, and now at Fletcher's, has been to act really quick, to really wow the customer, wow the recruit by being really fast, really professional. Yes, we've got your application. Yes, we're considering it. Calling them up for the good ones really quick, getting them in really quick, following up really well, because you're just wowing them at all these moments of truth compared to all these other people they're seeing. And that was behind my massive success I had in graduate recruitment compared to the other firms, and really cemented the way I did things. So things that, if you have a real high service ethic, things that to you are standard may well be a plus compared to your competitors, compared to the expectation of the client. But the more of these things you can build in, the more wow factors you have, then the more successful you will be. Psyche of your customer, finding the invisible truth. What you're really trying to understand is, what do they want and what do they expect? And we're using Alio now in rentals. We do Rate My Agent and other things in sales. We've asked a lot of questions over a long period of time of people. We're asking our staff lots of questions at the moment. You guys have got 2 surveys we'd like you to complete on different topics, brand and on COVID and all these things. The more you find out, the more research, the more you understand of your customer, the more chance you have of understanding what they really want. And that's why sitting down with a vendor after listing their property and taking them through the whole value model with the customer as to the narrative we have and post-listing discussion is all about that. How do you want to be serviced, and how do you want me to behave as your agent? And if I do all that, I'm going to be a superstar, and you're going to refer me to everyone. You're going to pay me more commission. You're going to do all the things I want, and we're going to have a better experience. To me, I don't understand why any agent wouldn't want to jump at that. You're trying to find that hidden thing, that invisible truth. This is a very standard line that is true, and it was talked about at I think it was Bosch conference, when he asked all of his leading salespeople, what do people buy from us? What do they want from us? And they said, drills. And he said, no, they actually want holes. Because nobody buys a drill to buy a drill. You don't do it to make holes. And so our goal is to make sure they understand that we make the best holes. And it's kind of a famous invisible truth. What do people want? You think about restaurants. What do you want in a restaurant? You want good service, good food, and a good atmosphere. And in what order? If you have really good service but the food isn't good, you're probably not going to go back. If you have really good food, service is okay, the environment's okay, you might go back. You got to work it out. What does someone, a D in a profile of DISC is less interested in the intangibles. They just want to get on with it. They're more interested in the tangibles. Your I and your S are far more interested in intangibles and the relationship. Your C is very much about tangibles. So you got to understand who you're talking to and what they really want to get the best outcome. And that's what DISC is all about, really, isn't it? Selling to them on their terms, talking to them on their terms. What do they want? How do they want to be spoken to? What's going to get you the best sort of return?
Hello, guard. Yo, come here.
It's the new guy, huh? Yeah. Can you check on him?
All right. Hello.
You got a problem here.
Yeah, can you come here and look at this thing? There's a draft, and there seems to be noises coming from the ventilation room, and it's cold in here. I mean, it shouldn't be like that, right?
What the hell?
Whoa! What a hole! Hey, have you seen this? Look! You never noticed? Well, you've been lying here for 4 years. Oh, you poor thing.
Like Covey, it's far better to know than not know what people think about you and the experience they have with you. Therefore, asking people for feedback is really, really important. Dealing with that feedback is really important. If you want to get better, you deal with it. I can remember when I went to my second law firm, and it was, to be nicest words possible, it was just an absolute broken down wreck in every way imaginable, which was good. And once we were looking at customer service and rebranding and that, I'm not sure how long into my stay there, but it wasn't very long into it, maybe a few months. I convinced the partners that we were going to have focus groups. We're going to get in 100 of our clients in groups of 10 and offer them some nice nibbles and drinks and sit around a table and talk to them about their perceptions of Purvis Clark Richards. And about a third of the partners were, no way. Why would we want to ask them? Why do we want to know what they think? Seriously, they were just so adamant about that. And a third were probably ambivalent, and a third were, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Anyway, it was, and what we did is we made sure that none of the partners associated with those clients were in the room, so the clients could speak freely about their service experiences. And it was illuminating. It was massive for our growth, for partners to hear how clients didn't like being kept waiting in receptions, how they didn't like not getting a response back for several days when they left a question, how they didn't like, so many things. And it really led to us building a TQS environment and servicing our clients the way they wanted to be serviced. And in fact, in that, I didn't have a marketing department, I had a TQS department. And we worked completely from TQS model in that environment. And we rebuilt our entire service offering, starting with that feedback. So what we're trying to understand with this is, what can we do to understand their experience, to improve as a result of it, so we can grow and get more of their business, of course, in the future. And if we don't ask those questions, we don't find out. So what we should do with it is seek it, take it in, analyze it, have a positive attitude that if somebody's prepared to give us feedback, good, bad, or ugly, then that's a good thing. And it's always often better to know. And remember, if you don't know, you can't deal with it. I've told you this way back when, but you need to average about 9.5 out of 10 to actually, or it's actually 9.6 out of 10. So out of 5, you're at like 4.8 to actually get a client who's going to be loyal to you. And the whole net promoter score talks about a 9 upwards, and that's rounding it down if you like, because it's actually higher than that. But a 9 gets you a loyal client, 7 and 8 is good, below that's ambivalent, under what it is 4 or 5 is bad. And that all came from those private banking studies done. And remember, you can't get a 9.5 or above unless you've actually fixed something for someone. So you've actually listened to their feedback, and as a result, you have fixed, you've helped, you've achieved something. And as a result of that, they feel more loyal to you. When you ask, we were at a restaurant in Bendigo Saturday night, great restaurant, the Woodhouse, one of the best restaurants in Victoria, I would say, and it's in Bendigo. We eat every time we go through Bendigo. And one of the young ladies walked by, she wasn't our waitress, and I said to her, excuse me, could I get a glass of ice? Yeah, sure. Well, it didn't arrive. And next lady, and they're really great, seriously, but the next lady walking by about 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever minutes later, I said to her, excuse me, I did ask, but I didn't get it. Could I get a glass of ice? She said, certainly. And within a matter of 20 seconds, she was back with a glass of ice. Now, I don't even remember what the first one looked like, but I have a very bad impression of her ability as a service provider compared to the other one. And I only had one experience with each of them, but I reckon she's really good and I reckon she's really bad. That's what's going to happen when you're dealing with people. They're going to form an opinion based on whatever moments of truth they experience with you. And if it's bad, they're not going to have a positive experience. They're not going to have a positive view of you, even if it's only one moment of truth. It makes sense? Somebody calls you up to do business with you and they get cut off. They going to call back? I don't know. You know what happened in one of my law firms, and you guys will laugh at this, but it wasn't funny at the time. A U.S. corporate called our office from the U.S. in their morning or whatever it was, and they got our answering machine, and the whole weekend went by, and our one of our partners called him back on the Monday, and he said, we wanted to engage your firm to assist a client of ours on a major takeover in Australia, but because we haven't heard from you for 48 hours, we've gone with X firm. And it was like a $5 or $10 million transaction to a law firm. Lost because we didn't have an answering service that actually, this was at Freehills, we didn't have an answering service that dealt with the call when it came through. We had an answering machine that just kept the message until we showed up on Monday. Well, that changed, but that was a pretty expensive lesson. Does that make sense? You know, that's one experience. They had one experience with us and thought, well, we don't want to deal with you. You might have been the best firm out there. You were recommended to us, but you don't even answer your phone. You're always thanking people for their feedback, giving clarity, and ultimately get that back in an action plan format to let them know this is what we've done to fix it. I hope you're happy with that. Yep, that sounds great. That's what we wanted, and yeah, we're very happy with that. And that's a nice little feedback cycle. We've had a lot on those things. Remember that problems are opportunities, because if you fix something for someone, they're going to like you better, and it's going to give you a higher degree of customer satisfaction and retention. Now, the reason behind that, if it's not obvious, is if you have actually listened to me and addressed my concern and fixed something, then I can rely on you to do that again in the future. Whereas I don't know if someone else is going to do that. Yes, they have their standard way of doing things, but maybe they're not going to be helpful. That's why you get a higher level of satisfaction when you actually address something for someone rather than never having to in the first place, because they feel like, wow, you're on my side, you're listening. You've listened, you've acted, you've done. That's great. What more could I ask for? Yeah, nobody gets everything 100% right. I get that. But wow, you really listened to me. No, we've said it many times, but it's not personal. And sometimes people can be aggressive in their response because they're frustrated, but it's not usually personal or directed at you. And if you can take it in a less personal, more clinical way and understand that they just want an outcome, they just want an experience and an outcome, and that's all they're trying to get. And therefore, you know, they're going to put to you to get it. Making sure they understand that you're going to help them, try to resolve the problem. Don't just pass it along. And we talked about that before. You know, obviously, sometimes you have to delegate it out, but you got to make sure it's been dealt with. I got a call this morning. I'm going to tell you a really funny one. The first thing I'm doing this morning, I'm sitting at my computer. I'd been doing emails from like 8 o'clock or something, and I don't know, it was like 8:30. I get this call, and I thought it was a robot on the phone. Hi, I'm Dale, whatever, from Seymour. And it sounded like a robot. And I said, I'm sorry. And he said exactly the same thing again. It was a country guy speaking really slowly. And I thought it was a robot. And I said, no, look, no. He said, no, I'm Dale, someone from Seymour, and I want to sell my house. and by the third time, I was like, oh, right. Okay. Sorry. I just couldn't understand what you were saying. Thank you so much for calling. Sorry for the misunderstanding. Now, how can I help you? You know, and anyway, I forwarded to Rob Fletcher and said, Rob, please let me know that and Rob texted me back, say, yep, I'll handle it today. You don't just pass things along, good or bad, without making sure it's dealt with. And you have to reassure people. And when I get calls that I have to take that are a complaint nature, Caroline's fantastic and Sarah's fantastic at helping resolve things. But sometimes they come to me and I've got to deal with it. And I will say to them that I assure you, you'll hear back from me or you'll hear back from one of my team members within the next hour. And I'm going to make sure that it happens. And I will speak to Caroline or Sarah and say, I want to know that you've spoken to them and tell me that you've spoken to them and whether it's been resolved or what we're doing to resolve it. Because I want to make sure that, you know, from an integrity, not that I have any doubt that they'll do it, but I want to make sure it's done. And the same thing happens when it's a franchise office, and we got to make sure that it's actually being done. So we know that it's actually been resolved. You know, you always want to listen and give people your full attention when they're talking about their problem. If it's in person, obviously eye contact when they're telling you important things is really, really important. Try to use the customer's name wherever you can. make sure you got it right. Use it as often as possible. People like to hear their own name. It's true. People like to hear themselves speak. It's very important. And every time I get a call, I just, like I did this morning, as soon as I realized it was a real person, I wrote his name down on a piece of paper right next to me so I could say, Dale, 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 you know, as I spoke to him. Thank you, Dale, for your call. I really appreciate it, Dale, because it just is a personal thing. In fact, remembering somebody's name is one of the highest win friends and influence people things you can actually do. And getting their name wrong is one of the lowest things that you can do. In fact, my neighbor over on this side, I've got this neighbor doing a redevelopment, and I've got Richo in there. And I've got this neighbor who wants to sell and downsize next year, and I've got Richo into there. And I speak to him all. He's a lovely man. He's, you know, retired. He's probably pushing close to 80. And you know, said to him, you know, have you had contact with other agents and over time? And he said, yeah, there's this girl she's got a new agency. I think her name's Zolly at Shelter. I said, yeah, Zolly Booker. And he said, she always calls, his name is Neil. She always calls me Nick. I really hate that. I would never use her. And I just laughed, you know, because that's the truth. And so I've certainly told Richo to make sure you get his name right on all dealings with him. And so far, so good. You know, we've had 3 or 4 interactions between Richo and him, which has all been positive. People like that. People don't like getting their name wrong. Don't like you getting their name wrong at all. Make sure you clarify the situation. Apologize, say this is not, you know, I understand what you've said. It seems really unusual. That's not what we expect from this person. I never really heard that before. Let me follow it up. You know, you don't just say, oh, that sounds terrible. He must be, you know, she must be, because you don't want to buy into it, because often the customer's not telling the truth. You know, there's 2 sides to every story. So I take it in, I say, thank you so much for that feedback. That's really surprising. You know, I never really have heard anything critical about Ian or Melissa since I've been here, or they've been fantastic, but I will research that. I will come back to you within the hour. Again, it'll either be me or it'll be a colleague. I want to make sure that I get the facts and understand it all, and we will do our best to resolve your problem as quickly as possible. And, you know, there's also belief when somebody's really aggressive, you can't be too passive. You have to sort of be a bit aggressive back. And I will, if somebody's being aggressive, I'll say, listen, you need to calm down now and I've listened to you. You need to listen to me. If you can't calm down, I'm going to hang up the phone. I'm not going to put up with this, neither would any of my staff. So just calm down. Tell me your problem. I want to hear it, but I need you to calm down. And I've said to people who keep carrying on, I say, I'm going to hang up. I'm giving you one more chance to understand that. I will hang up on you. And I've hung up on people. And I go to reception when I hear that's happening at reception. I'll walk right out and I'll say, give me the phone, you know, and I'll either take the phone and say, listen, I'm the CEO. You don't talk to our staff that way. You need to calm down, and I will try to help you. Or I'll say to the person, if they can't even get it, I'll just say, just tell them you're going to hang up now and hang up. And when they call back, I'll take the call, because we're not here to be abused, but we're also here to calm down people, hear their messages. And if they're being all hot and bothered, you don't even hear what's really going on. They're just, you know, venting, and that's not helping either. So try to calm people down, try to bring them down. But if you're down here and they're way up here, it probably doesn't work. Excuse me, but you gotta, hey, I'm hearing you, but you need to calm down. You need to just stop for a moment and let me speak. I find that works. I find that helps bring them down. If they know you're going to try to resolve their problem, be mature and remember it's not personal. Accept responsibility, tell them what you're going to do. Immediate action to try to get it resolved. The longer something takes, the bigger the problem becomes. If you can resolve something, my experience is if I can get back to people in an hour resolving things, it is such a positive outcome. They just feel so much better. It's been resolved. Great. Thank you for that prompt action. My faith is restored, all that sort of stuff. And that's why I know Sarah, Caroline, myself, Rob, we all act really fast. And if it's property management, the same thing happens. Pato and his team are right onto it to try to resolve things quickly. Because if you let them fester, then it's just a bad thing. You can't defend indefensible. as Tim Fletcher always said, if something's wrong, fix it. You know, if we have to pay for something, we pay for it. If we have to send them a gift basket because somebody dropped something in their mailbox, which is do not disturb or no junk mail, and we've dropped something in there by one of our droppers, we will go and send them a gift basket and deliver it and whatever, just to try to fix the problem, because you don't want somebody out there in the community hating you and bad mouthing you and telling their neighbors, you know what, you shouldn't use Fletcher's, and they're, oh, I was just going to think about selling with Fletcher's, you know. There's a $17,000 loss, or there's a rental property we've lost simply because we didn't fix something, you know. So we are very easy to do something to fix something. It doesn't take us a lot to want to send them a gift basket or do something more than that if necessary. We've had several instances where we fixed problems for buyers because we got stuff wrong on the advertising. We will do that because it works. And sometimes just to appease someone, we'll do something to make sure that they don't hate us, even if it's not our fault. Sometimes it's the vendor's fault, and we'll agree. And I remember on one occasion, the buyer was being demanding, and the vendor was being really terrible about it. Our agent hadn't done anything wrong, but we agreed to put up a small fence, something that the vendor just refused to do, simply because that buyer was going to be just so much trouble, and we wanted to show them that we would fix it, even if it's not our responsibility, and just get them out of our hair in a positive way. You know, it's worth spending a bit of money. You know, that thing we talked about, the plus, the positive, doing something, give them something beyond what they expect, help them faster, give them some gift, do something to make it better. So think about these questions. There's a lot of them here. I think that's the last one, yeah. So think about something from some client you deal with, and it could be internal if you don't have an external client, but something that happened that you had to deal with. Caroline, this is easy for you, but think of something you had to deal with because you deal with so many problems. But you guys, think of Ian, think of some vendor or buyer you had a problem with, or Sandy, a landlord or a tradie or a tenant or whatever, Melissa, one of your staff, you know, and just think about these questions. Think about these bits of things that you could have done to understand it better, to resolve it better. Spend a few minutes on that. Okay, would anyone like to just comment about any of the sort of the high points of this exercise? Anything that, you know, you wish you thought of then as you thought of now? Got
Bradley,
nothing?
it's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Um, I had a situation a couple of years ago where I'd sold a fairly large property and actually had ride-on mowers, which were to be left as part of the chattel. And the people that bought it, I'd already sold their property for. When they moved into the property, the mower that had been left was the same model, but it was an old clapped out one. And the one that had been in there, which was about a 6-month-old, 12-month-old, the previous owners had actually taken it with them. So it became a real point of contention. And
Mike,
while they
we're
were
really,
upset, I
Mike,
guess, with me and
Mike,
with
we're
the
really
company
having
because,
trouble.
yeah,
Mike, sorry, we're really having trouble understanding you. That's going in and out with your internet quite badly. So I might have to just stop you there because I can see everyone's faces. Well, I think we're all having the same problem understanding what you're saying. I got the gist of it, but just say a few more words and see if it's gotten better.
is that any better now?
Yeah, keep going. Yeah, that's better.
Okay,
got-
might have
we
been
got
with the
the-
video turned on. Yep.
We got the idea that that they were supposed to leave a better rod-on mower. They swapped it and left a bad one, and we're up to whatever you did to resolve it.
Yeah, so basically I had a decision to make. We tried to contact the previous owners, and because settlement had taken place, they were just gone to ground, didn't want to know about it. And so we're in a bit of an awkward situation. And I had to make a call. These people were really well connected in the community that I was involved with. And I ended up basically paying for a new ride-on mower. And it cost me $3,000. But the goodwill that came from that, and suddenly I was a raving fans with these people that previously were good vendors, but in this situation had become quite narky. They actually didn't expect me to do that, and because of the goodwill that came with that, they basically recommended me to about a half a dozen other people for sales. So it was a judgment call at the time. It was the right one because they it cost me $3,000 for a ride-on mower, but I probably picked up $100,000 or so in commission. So but also just maintained the integrity and the goodwill.
Excellent. Yeah. Over the time, I've bought people a new roof. I've removed a house, bought them new central heating, put up new pool fence, done a lot of things for that same sort of purpose, is doing the right thing and creating goodwill. Well done. Quality critical processes are, all of the things that affect your relationship with the client at the end of the day. If you can't deliver things effectively, or somebody's having trouble communicating with you or getting emails to you, then it's just a real negative. So making sure that the systems that you're operating with are able to deliver the quality service experience you want to have. As remember, you're never going to service your external clients better than you service your internal clients. So if you don't have good systems operating, you're never going to have a good service experience overall. You want to be as customer friendly as possible. You should build things from the user's point of view, the end game point of view, as much as possible when you're doing things. How's this going to affect our clients? Is this a good thing? If it's just about saving time or money, but it has a negative effect, then it's not a good thing. If the ultimate thing is customers aren't as happy with it, and those could be your internal customers as well as your external customers. The whole thing has to be user friendly and customer friendly. you need to have those people who use it. Those people are the end users when you're thinking about these things, without question. And as we, for example, implemented real-time agent, we kept testing them, and we sent them to friends to test them. When we were looking at creating our new stage one, I remember we sent it out to all the wives of directors and several of our female staff to ask them their opinions on it before we actually went ahead with the sort of the new look. Obviously, we wanted to, without it being seen as just for women, we wanted it to be more female friendly, our branding and our messaging, and wanted to see how they reacted to it. So testing things on customers and consumers is always really important. We don't want that to have to be what said, oh, I didn't invent it, I just have to use it. Yeah, I understand it's a problem, but it's the way it is. It never goes down that well because you don't really separate the individual from the organization. It's still going to affect the brand. And you get that you guys all experience that all the time in service experiences where someone says, oh yeah, it doesn't work that well. And oh yeah, I went on your website and it didn't really work. Yeah, it hasn't worked for months. I sent your company an email and nobody responded. Computer Share is a company that maintains computer or share registries for a lot of companies. They are the most difficult company on the planet to deal with, and they're just impossible to deal with. And I have such a horrible view of that company. And every time I'm dealing with all of these other companies who have their shares from them, I'll say, have you ever tried to deal with Computer Share? Have you ever tried to actually access your documents or get help? You can't. They don't help you. So why do you guys use that? Why don't you use a different service company who actually care? And I'm sure I've helped them lose clients. I hope I have. Your view of the company, the brand, is all of those moments of truth. And if nobody responds to your email, or the website doesn't work, or you try to make a booking and you can't, and I will say to a lot of things, if I can't do business with them easily, I don't want to do business with them at all. If they can't maintain their website or they can't have a system that works, why would I want to be providing them with more money? And I think a lot of people think that way. So think about something that you interact with at your company, whether it's Fletcher's or other, that doesn't work that well. That doesn't work very well for you, or in number 3, isn't very good for our customers. I hope you can't really come up with many because we've worked so hard to not have them, but I'd be interested if you do come up with any of those and what suggestions you have. And I wouldn't mind if you did, in this exercise, email me your exercise sheet for number 9 if there are things either at external customer or internal customer yourselves you find not user-friendly, not helpful, hard to use. So do this exercise, spend a few minutes, and feel free to email me your responses if it's going to provide us with some information that we can help fix something. Okay, we might continue on. Again, if you actually had some thoughts in there for numbers 1 and 3, send them to me by email. I'd appreciate that. This is the design. This is our response to the customer value model, is our customer value package as to what we're going to deliver. And it's that total offering of tangibles and intangibles. It's Fletcher's Way is our value package. It's what we offer them back as a result of understanding what they want. And it's all these things, you know, it's related to all these different areas. The setting, you know, comfort, the relationship, systems, information they need, deliverables we're supposed to, you know, do. Even, you know, the financial is a big part of it. You know how often you go to a good restaurant and you can't pay your bill? It happens all the time, and I find that really annoying when you're done and you say, "Can we have our bill, please?" And it takes 10 minutes for the bill to come, and then they disappear again. And you know, it's like, I don't want to be here for another 15 or 20 minutes. We asked for the bill, we're ready to go, and that happens a lot. And you know, we ate at 2 really high-end restaurants during our trip away, and it happened in both of them, where I have to eventually, you know, say, "Come on, could you just bring us our bill and the machine so we can go?" Because you get to a point where, I'm going to go into the room, Sally's coming home with groceries. You get to the point where you just ready, you're done. You know, you don't want to keep going. Bear with me 1 second. And you know, the same thing would happen in legal firm environments. I just disturbed Pablo. He's asleep in one of the grocery bags. The same thing happens with billing, you know, like in service companies where you have people you deal with that are slow in the billing, and you get your billing a lot later than you want to, can be a real issue. I can remember people complaining that they'd already closed off their accounts, and then we send them a legal bill late or accounting bill late. In our situation, the settlement details are really important, getting them all right and getting people their money when they're supposed to. Landlords getting their money when they're meant to. If it's a couple of days delayed, they can't pay the bills, and you know, all sorts of things happen. It's that whole process. All of it is interrelated to getting a good experience. And I don't think that people think about this client for life thing, that it's every interaction you have with them, all of them. And even when the transaction's done, if an agent drops off the edge of the world and never communicates with the client after sale, they don't have a good impression of that agent. Even after settlement, if the agent just disappears completely, they don't have a good impression, because it's all part of that whole cycle of that value package. This comes back to that stuff we talked about before. You know, you can think of, you know, different levels of service in any environment. Here's in a hotel, you know, you have your basic service of food, accommodation. We expect cleanliness, certain, you know, amenities in the room. What's unanticipated? Maybe they've left you a voucher to come down and have a cocktail on us. We stay at a quirky hotel in Sydney at Woolloomooloo Wharf, and Sally would remember the name. She's really good at that. I'm really bad at that. But when you get in the room, it's all quirky. But you get in the room, they have like a whole bag of goodies on the table for you. In a big shopping bag, they fill it with lollies and chips and water bottles and all sorts of things. It probably cost them 20 or 30 bucks. They probably add it to the room rate, and they give you a better than expected expectation. And in the bag, they have vouchers to different restaurants, and you go, wow, that's great, you know. Or another hotel we stay out there, they have a free mini bar in the room, and there's no, you know, limited things in there, some beer, wine, but they just factored into your cost and give that extra bit of service, that unanticipated wow, that somebody's going to think really positive of you. Now, when you think about this, I mean, I've done a lot of this, and maybe some of you have done some of it subconsciously, but when you start to design the customer value package, you're having to think about that total offering. You have to think about, what do they want? What's their model? How do we create the service strategy that's going to deliver that? We have to evaluate what we do now and figure out where the gaps are. Remember our 5-stage planning process from the very start of the course. This is a perfect example of that. If you want to be better at settlement stage, then you have to figure out where we're at now, what's the gap to where we want to get to, and how do we fill that in. That was the last stage of Fletcher's Way I built, was sell to settlement, because we kept having problems in that stage. And I thought, oh, I better think about that. And I spent a lot of time with some of the salespeople and finance and understanding all the stages that happen between sale and settlement to do that. And then ultimately we refine and create this deliverable. What are we delivering to people? What is their experience going to be when dealing with Fletcher's in sales, rentals? What's the experience of somebody internally dealing with Fletcher's? If they have HR issues or they have finance issues, I would hope to believe that it's very easy to deal with Fletcher's. And if it isn't in an area, I obviously always want to know so we can fix it. The whole goal is to not frustrate people, but to make it work well. And so you should constantly be looking at this value package and seeing whether or not you're actually delivering that. The end product is this experience, is a feeling. The end product of service is a feeling. And that's why we say that, you can get somebody a really great price for their home, and you can do it in the time frame they want. But if they don't have a thoroughly positive service experience, they're not going to think well of you. So if you remember, those of you through the sales part of the group, when we've done Fletcher's Way and we've looked at the post-listing discussion, the goal is for a vendor is to sell their property at the desired price and at the desired time frame, and for them to have a thoroughly positive service experience. And for the buyer, it's for them to have had a fair opportunity to purchase the property and to be treated with respect throughout the process. And that's that end product of what we're trying to deliver. Because you can sell someone's property, but they'll never use you again. They'll never recommend you to anyone again. They won't like you. They'll give you negative reviews because you didn't communicate, you didn't follow through. And as a result, they won't use you, even though you might have sold their house for them. So think about what you do with just think about one sort of customer situation, and whether it be internal or external again, and just think about these questions and write any notes that you would have against them for the next couple of minutes. Just something, that comes to mind that you do a lot, you experience a lot. Give it some thought. I'm sure you'll come up with something. Okay, we might continue on. Hopefully that made you think a bit. We're time, we got 2 minutes. It's a funny thing about the spirit of service, you know, when I first came to Australia, 84, there wasn't a spirit of service in this country, and it was very much ingrained in the original convicts, and the culture of Australia was real anti-service. And if you ever read The Fatal Shore, you understand why. You know, it's because seeing to service your jailers was something to get beaten by your mates over, and people really didn't like to provide service. And Australia in 84 had one of the worst service ethics in the world. And when I first came here, I mean, I accepted it and understood it, but it was so far behind America and Asia and Europe. It was just like a different world. And now it's not. You know, Australian service and service ethic has really changed in the last 40 years with a lot of the Asian imports into Australia, other people, a lot of Australians traveling a lot, all the concepts of all the TV cooking shows and, you know, and all of those things have all really changed the service ethic in this country to where it is a much, much higher standard. They always used to argue that it's all because tips, you don't get tips here, whereas you get tips in America. It's nothing to do with that, because in fact, we still don't have tips here for the most part yet. The service standards here now are mostly better than what we experience when we go back to the States now, and they get tips there. Not always, but trying to create that spirit of service in your team, your office, your organization is a challenge, but it's a really good one to be able to do. It's that whole attitude based on, you know, people having a willingness to take pride in the work they do and to care about delivering a good outcome. And, you know, every time people start with Fletcher's, we talk all about our values and our behaviors, and we constantly push all those things, and we talk about how important it is to live up to the standards, and you hope all that keeps working to create, and doing all the reviews that we do, and, you know, people being aware of all of those and posting all of those helps everyone to sort of maintain that level. And doing the silent shopper at opens, we did a couple of years ago, we came out to all the opens, and all those things is designed to help instill in people the need to have pride in their work. You know, and if you have it, you can do really well. You know, organizations that are able to get the heart going, that invisible, you know, care. We care about the brand, we care about the company, we care about delivering to our clients. You get a good outcome. And, you know, when we ate at that Woodhouse restaurant on Saturday night, our friends we were with on our trip have both spent their entire working life in hospitality, and both of them ran pubs and restaurants for most of their life. And Ian, the bloke who I'm friends with, he's been teaching hospitality and customer service for the last 20 years at a, you know, a hospitality university. And so, you know, they were sitting there at the Woodhouse and going, how refreshing it is to actually see a whole team of people who are very professional at what they do. And you really see it when you see it. And when you deal with an organization that's got that spirit of service and people care about it and has a really good service ethic, it obviously always comes back to the owners because they're pushing it and they want it. But if you can create that, then you end up with a really good outcome. You know, we've had two different franchisees over time that aren't with us now, who both, once we got to know them, and even though we believed they would do the right thing, they didn't have that service ethic that we want at Fletcher's. And we terminated both of those relationships. And it caused a lot of pain doing it, but we did both times. And we've had people with us who are $500,000 to $1 million riders who don't have the service ethic we want, and we've got rid of them. Sometimes you just can't instill it in people. You know, why do you find it so hard to return calls from buyers? You know, like, all right, divert your phone to PA if you don't want to take the call. You don't even do that. You know, like, well, that those people don't have a service ethic. They don't really care. And they don't fit us. So, trying to create this whole service strategy is knowing your customers and what they want, knowing your products, trying to understand their needs, trying to exceed their expectations. I mean, that real can-do attitude towards getting things done is just critical to the process. Empowerment is, really important. Believing in service is really important as a company. And, if you treat your own people badly, they're not going to have a real service ethic. I don't think they'll treat your customers any better than you treat them. So if you treat them pretty ordinary, that's the way they're going to treat them. And when you go into a business that's not very well run, you just have to look at the owner and you can see exactly why it is the way it is, why people don't like it there, why they're not that positive or happy, they don't service people very well. It always reflects back to ownership, whether it's a small business or a very large business, to try to create that whole service paradigm. It's not that easy. It says it is, but basically to get a quality environment, you have to have a good vision. You have to have a good strategy to get there. Things like documenting, having Mavums of the world, having great tools for people to use, constantly reinventing those, communicating a lot, doing silent shopping, doing noisy shopping, doing all the things that keep people honest and keep them on that quality journey, having reviews and having social media to talk about, values, being very strong in your values. And you guys know how much I push the whole vision and values belief. Leadership, has to empower and trust people to do the right thing, as we know. So a really good system will be valued by internal and external clients. They come to Fletcher's because they want good service. We're probably not the company to go to when you want to have a 0.5% commission and have a cheap and nasty deal. When you want to sell it yourself, when you want to lease it yourself, we're probably not the best company for that. You have to be flexible because that 80-20 doesn't work. When it comes to individual customer service, it's about that individual. Yes, we have a framework, but we have to tailor it to suit as we need to. To try to be better than your competitors, you either have to do things better than others or do things differently than others. And it's an interesting thing as we live in this unique ecosystem real estate that we're so visible to the world, because when we're talking about winning a property to let or a property to sell, they're going to see 3 or 4 agents. When they're going out into the street, they're going to see all these different real estate companies. They're going to see all our ads on them. They can see so much more about us. So this industry has always had this incredible pressure to be like the guy next door, to make sure you're doing what they're doing. And to actually do things differently than others is rare in our industry. Do things better. You try to do things different or better, you're going to be copied very quickly. To keep being innovative is very, very difficult and costly. It's a real challenge, particularly to keep doing things differently in such a visible. I mean, we know we go to a listing appointment, our stage 1, our stage 2, or whatever is going to be sent to the opposition. Enough that we know that at least everything we do will be in every opposition. When we built the first real great website, probably in Australia for real estate, we were copied within a year by all the major brands around us, and you could see all the features we built into ours, them trying to build into theirs. When we went to brochures on every property, we were the first to do that. Everyone copied. We went to put magazine out, everyone started to copy that. When we put doormats and plastic stands on our opens, everyone started to copy that. In fact, I remember right after we started running our new Fletcher's Way opens, Richard Jealous made it a mandate, and he said it at the Hawthorne sales meeting of Jealous when they only had a couple offices. Everyone in this business must go and visit a Fletcher's Open this week. You know, it's very difficult to keep a secret. So it's a matter of trying to do things really well and having really good systems that people can follow to be successful. It's very difficult to maintain that competitive advantage. But our whole focus has to be on delivering a customer value package that is better than the customers, better than our competitors. Remember, marketing, the goal of marketing is to differentiate yourself in the eyes of the consumer from your competitors. And the thing that you can do best is we deliver better value overall between how we help you sell your property, how we communicate with you, how we do with it, how we manage your property, how we deal with the tenants, how we deal with our trades. We're better than the others. And you got to have the clients at the other end accepting that, because they're witnessing it and going, yes, you're right. I've sold with 3 other agencies. You guys are by far and away the best. I've had 3 rental properties. You guys are by far and away the best. If you can get that, then yes, you're delivering it. If you get the answer at the end of the thing, oh, you know, you're all pretty much the same, then you're not delivering superior value. You don't have a competitive advantage. You don't have them saying to other people, you got to use Fletcher's. You know, they were great. Wow, I couldn't recommend you more highly. They give you great reviews. They give you recommendations to other people because you were better than other people. And if you're not, if you're just in the pack, you're just in the pack. So just think for a minute with these questions. In your world that you are part of, Fletcher's or elsewhere, what do you think these answers can be? What can our firm do to be better than others, to be different than others? What can you do yourself to be better than others or different than others? Just spend a few minutes on this exercise. Okay, everybody, might get you to look up and anybody feel like the exercise today, they came up with any blindingly good things or things that are obvious you haven't thought of before? Blinding flash of the obvious, as Chris Helder would say. You know, anything you want to share with the group in the next couple minutes before we sign off? Got nothing? Got nothing?
I'll go, Bradley. I'm thinking just asking a question, whether it's a vendor or a tenant in our roles, you know, what's good for them, what are their expectations, you know, what time works for them, opening up that's going to open up everything that they want. So whether it's mornings or afternoons, then there's less drama.
Yeah, agreed. The more you ask, the more you understand, you know, the more you get them talking. Other comments, questions, thoughts? All right. Well, we're going to break at this point, and on Wednesday, we're going to finish the last few slides on TQS and do cycle time reduction. And then the following Monday, we will finish the course with presentation skills to understand the theory behind it all. And because I think whether you're talking to one person or 500 people, you should present well and know the sort of key things of putting a presentation together. All right, everyone, I'm going to send you the, when I send you the video from today, I'll also send you the notes for cycle time reduction, which are now done. And I'll see you guys again on Wednesday.
Thanks, Bradley.
Thanks, Bradley.
Thank you, Bradley.
All right, everybody.
Thank you. See ya.